Good morning and welcome to the D&J Seeds 2021 Winter Agronomy Update number 5. I'm here today with field agronomist Ryan Underwood from Pioneer, and today we'll be talking about tar spot, which is a relatively new disease in this area, but can have significant impacts on yield and standability.
Good morning. I'll start talking about what tar spot is. Like Jason said, tar spot's a relatively new disease. It's been around for a century in some of the Latin American countries like Mexico, but really it just came to be a disease of prominence in 2015, starting off in Illinois and Indiana, and really rearing its head in 2018 in that northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin areas. When we're looking at tar spot, really looks to develop during cool temperatures at 60 to 70 degrees. You got to have high relative humidity, usually greater than 75%, and really targets around those frequently cloudy days where you have maybe not a lot of wind during the night and you get those 7+ hours of dew extending into the morning hours. Tar spot can reduce yields basically by acting like almost like premature death, where it causes early senescence. You get a buildup of those tar spot spores and lesions on the leaf, and ultimately what it does is cause it to senesce earlier during that grain-filled period. And really it starts on the lowest leaves and then moves up to the upper leaves, and maybe even in severe cases developing on the husk of the ears. So when we look for, kind of the identification and symptoms of tar spot, it really looks like almost like common rust. Sometimes when I'm out identifying tar spot, I have to kind of take my magnifying glass and look close at the lesions to see, is it common rust? Really what I do is rub my fingers across it to see if it rubs off, but basically they start being a kind of a brown color, and as those lesions or spots age, they turn into a darker blackened color. So they're kind of bumpy, even. The one characteristic that you see with tar spot versus like common rust, the outer edges of that lesions will be more smooth on tar spot and they'll be more jagged on the rust. So yield impacts of tar spot, like I said, in 2018, there was a big outbreak of tar spots. I have some colleagues that I work with in Wisconsin that were severely impacted. But that's really the first year in 2018 where we saw a significant yield reduction. So university research out of Wisconsin says that they've seen up to 39 bushels per acre. Some on-farm Pioneer research fields have shown a 50% yield hit with severe incidents of tar spot. So really it's all over the board. Depends on, it's like a lot of other diseases like northern corn leaf blight, really depends on when the disease onsets. If it's later in the season, you're going to see less yield impact. If it happens earlier in the season, you'll see a higher yield impact. But really what it causes is that ear, that those kernel depth not to be as deep with severe incidents there. So
tar spot, where is it? First detection was in Indiana, Illinois, as Ryan stated, and then it's been reported every year since then and confirmed in different fields, and it's spread fairly rapidly across the Midwest, and we're assuming, or Pioneer is assuming, that it's overwintering in corn residue. So in this graphic, you'll see the spread of tar spot from 2015 to 2019, and you can see as it spread in Indiana and Illinois from 2015 and through 2019 fairly rapidly, especially in 2019 across Iowa and then into Minnesota. And this graphic shows 2020 now spreading into both Faribault and Freeborn County. So these are some photos I took last fall over by Conger, and I was walking this field just doing some general observations. I'd I'd had my eye out all summer for tar spot, but hadn't seen it yet. And this kind of just, I was in this field, walked by this exact spot a week prior and did not see any lesions. It kind of took off pretty fast. And all of a sudden, bam, there it was. I sent samples and photos into the University of Minnesota to get it confirmed as tar spot. The good thing was this tar spot infection happened late enough in the growing season where it had really minimal yield impact. The one thing that really concerns me is that now that the pathogen is here, if we get the right summer growing conditions where we have cooler, wetter mornings and nights, maybe we could see infection a lot earlier in the growing season and have some major yield impacts.
So tar spot, the next thing, if I'm a grower and I'm thinking about managing this, how do I control it? So, there's some agronomic practices to help manage tar spot. Tar spot overwinters in the corn residue. So really they haven't seen a lot of effects on managing tar spot through rotation or tillage. A lot of that depends on, because the spores can fly from one field to the next. If your neighbor had it in his field, they can fly up to 800 feet. Some of the research has shown. So really a lot of research is being done on tar spot because a lot of this stuff is unknown. But really, I think the guys that I worry about are maybe the fields that are protected by a windbreak, or you're getting some more hillier type fields. I think that's why we've seen more outbreaks in like Wisconsin and southeastern Minnesota with this. But Jason has some guys that do have some irrigation. I think that brings up a point where those guys might be more at risk if we do get an outbreak, just because of the irrigation. Some guys in Wisconsin have tried doing some irrigation at night to try to control how much leaf wetness they have during the day with some of those things. So the biggest, Jason talked about with white mold and SDS in previous videos that he shared with you, but really the biggest way to control tar spot is through hybrid selection. Now, we don't know exactly what hybrids are the best. We don't have a rating scale as of today. I know in Pioneer's research, they've started screening starting in 2019, and they hope to start having tar spot scores in the next couple of years. But right now, we just have visual observations shared with us by my agronomist peers to kind of show differences. You can see there's a picture, and there's definitely differences amongst hybrids. And I would say that Pioneer does have a really good lineup against tar spot with what we've seen in 2018 and 2019. I think generally speaking, longer maturing hybrids do probably pose a higher risk than earlier maturing hybrids. I think a lot of that revolves around the disease cycle and when the disease onsets in the crop. So later maturity products have a longer grain fill time, so they probably are exposed to that disease severity becoming higher as you go through that grain fill period. But really comes down to like SDS and white mold. Really, genetic resistance is probably your best way to protect yourself against tar spot.
So foliar fungicides against tar spot. So lots of fungicides out there available to use. A lot of them are labeled for control of tar spot. You can see on the table on the right list of popular fungicides that are all, have very good, good to very good efficacy against tar spot. The one concern I would have is this disease. It does have a really rapid reinfection cycle. So if you spray a fungicide and that product, the residual ceases to work or wears off, you can get a reinfection of tar spot really quickly. Where I'm most concerned about this, I know it's there's some very effective fungicides that are promoted as a V10 or you know, shoulder high pre-tassel application, and really the residual on those products is probably 21 to 28 days. And I'm a little concerned with those applications, just if we'll have enough residual to control tar spot long enough, versus a VT to brown silk application. This is just a photo kind of highlighting, you know, really the difference visually. Well, with fungicide, a lot of times you'll see it. We've, you know, seen countless photos of line differences between treated and untreated with different diseases, but this was just a strip in Wisconsin where they had sprayed with and without fungicide.
So in recap, you know, on tar spot, does it need to keep us up at night? Probably not. I think as this disease, you know, matures and we learn more about the disease, you know, we'll learn different tactics to how to prevent it or how to mitigate some of the problems. I think it's good to have some awareness and know that Pioneer is working on scoring their hybrids. So if we get into a situation where this becomes a bigger issue, that we will be able to place the best products on your acres for you. So,
any questions, concerns, or ideas for future topics, feel free to reach out to me. Appreciate all your guys' time today and Ryan's time. Look forward to putting more of these together in the future. Thanks.